So good evening, everyone. I will be covering the visual assessment in special children. Not yet. Special children are defined by the Maternal and Child Health Bureau in the USA as those who have or at an increased risk for a chronic physical, developmental, behavioral, or emotional condition, and who also require health and related services of a type or amount beyond that required by children in general. There are several causes that lead to special needs children. These are some of them. Many studies have documented a number of visual dysfunction and visual problems in special needs children. The commonest being refractive error and strabismus, and the incidence of these disorders in special needs children is more than that in the general population. For example, in Down syndrome, all these anomalies are generally seen. Cerebral palsy is another condition where there is visual dysfunction, and there is loss of postural control, which is related to the vision also. So improvement in vision, correction of refractive errors, and taking care of the visual dysfunction significantly helps in postural control and motor coordination in these children. ADHD is associated with convergence insufficiency, and several disorders are also associated with autism. That's why it is very important to assess these special needs children for visual dysfunctions, because they are overlooked by other more serious systemic problems. Visual mode of communication is important for the overall development of the child, and simple measures like glasses can significantly affect and improve their motor coordination. Also, the parents want to know what the current status is and what its prognosis will be. Visual assessment in these children also helps in referral to a special school. Assessment in children in generally is quite difficult, and it is more so in special needs children because of their cognitive impairment, their inability to remember or learn new things, and they lack concentration. Motor disability can further add to the problem, or they have a poor attention span. So all this is likely to evoke pity, introspection, guilt, and confusion in the examiner. So this is a big challenge. These are the components of assessment in special children. We'll cover one by one. Before we go to the actual assessment, we have to remember that these children, as the name suggests, they are special needs children. So we have to take care of certain requirements. That is, keep a dedicated time slot for the examination, because it takes a lot of chair time to examine these children. Make sure that the timing of the day is optimal for the child and he is well fed and well rested to be cooperative for your examination. Keep the temperature in your clinic regulated. Keep the clinic clutter free. You can use bright colored toys, but you make sure they do not have emitting high squealing sound. It is better if the physiotherapist and the caregiver along with the parents is present there to position the child, or generally the child with whom the child feels most comfortable. Wear a solid shade apron over your dress, especially if you're wearing a colorful pattern, because that can distract these children. Remember that more than one visit may have to be scheduled, because if the child is not in the mood for an examination that day, we might have to postpone the visit. So patience is the key. Remember to examine the child from a non-threatening distance and avoid sudden jerky movement and loud toys. Certain modifications may have to be done in hearing impaired children. Also, those with mobility impairments require a wheelchair access to your clinic. Sometimes the motor problem is so much that they cannot visit the clinic, in which case you might have to go home and assess them. Now, before you start the formal assessment, initial observation of the child is very important. The minute he walks into your clinic, just notice whether he's making eye contact with you, whether he's responding to the smile that you are giving him, whether he's interested in the surroundings. Is he visually assessing the surroundings? Is he able to walk towards the examination chair and navigate himself without stumbling? So for example, here is a video. I just asked this child to get up and walk to the door. This is a child with microcephaly and CVI. He's accurately walking towards the door, reaching the doorknob without stumbling or without too much effort. And when asked to come back, he can accurately find his way back to the chair without any problem. So he has localized the chair and is able to sit on it even in an unfamiliar surrounding. This indicates that the visual development is considerably good in this child. Then history taking is very important. Ask for the birth history in the mother as well as the perinatal course. And current medical history with record reviewing would be a good idea to know the cause of his impairment and any other associated conditions. These are major visual milestones in a child's development. So it would be good to familiarize yourself with these and ask the caregiver if these milestones have been reached in that particular age. Dr. Gordon Dutton has formulated he has formulated a questionnaire for assessing functional vision in these children, which Dr. Suma Madam will be covering in her topic. But this is just a basic assessment of the child according to the parents or the caregivers in his or her routine life, like navigating throughout the house, eating, or simple tasks like taking out clothes and keeping clothes in the cupboard, or eating. So the parent can give you an idea about the visual problems faced by the child. Systemic examination is important to rule out any syndromes. Now, coming to the formal visual assessment, there are qualitative and quantitative methods. So qualitative ones include central steady maintained a method for fixation, whether the child is able to fix and follow, and whether he is resisting occlusion to any particular eye. This gives a rough idea about amblyopia or the vision potential in any eye. So this is a video of a CSM method. We can see that the left eye is deviating on the undercover. Right eye has good central steady fixation, which we will see is maintained even after removing cover from the left eye. But when you cover the good right eye, this eye takes up fixation. The left eye is taking up fixation, but it is not maintained. So this gives a clue that the left eye is amblyopic. So this is the video of following movement. This child has a severe and abnormal head posture. There is a face turn and a head tilt. So when you ask him to follow the light, he's able to do so in the left side, but his following on the right side is poor. He turns his head. So there is something wrong with the pursuit as well. So the simple following movement can give you an idea about these things. Quantitative tests help you to actually quantitate the vision by giving it a figure. So from birth to 2.5 years, we use preferential looking tests like Teller Acuity cards, which is based on the principle that the child will look towards a pattern rather than a plain screen. So this is the setup in which the examiner views from behind the screen and observes the eye movements of the child as the examiner alternates the cards. And these are the gratings. So the thinnest stripes which evoke a reliable visual response is quantified as the visual acuity. Similar principle is used in the Lia gratings and the Cardiff Acuity cards, which have pictures on them. You observe the child's eye movement, whether he's looking towards the picture. And the cards have visual acuity mentioned on its backside. 3 years or above, we can use the Lia symbols and matching. So this card is given to the child, and at a distance of 1 meter, you show him or her these symbols, and he's asked to point out or match the one that you are showing him. Also, this game can be used, Lia puzzle, in which he's asked to put the appropriate block in its slot. For little older children, we can use the Lia line test chart with crowding. He's asked to point out or matching can be done. And for children with slightly better visual function or better comprehension, we can use the Logmar and Snellen's charts as usual. So this is a table of quantification of all the symbol charts and acuity cards according to the Snellen fraction and the age. Only visual acuity is not enough. We have to assess other parameters which are also important in the child's development. So contrast sensitivity is one of them, which can be assessed through the Heiding-Heide low contrast test. This is important because if you are communicating with the child through facial expressions, that gives a low contrast. This can be improved with some makeup on the communicator's face to give it a high contrast, and the child can better respond to your facial expressions. It also has an implication when the child starts going to school and the classrooms are poorly lit or badly maintained, the child will not do as well. So it is important to assess his contrast sensitivity and make the necessary arrangements in his environment. Visual fields are important. Some parents complain that the child cannot climb down the stairs effectively because there is visual field loss in the inferior hemifield. So visual field assessment is important. You can do this by suddenly bringing an object of interest from the periphery and see if the child is able to see it. For very young children and those with special needs, there is a special perimeter now available in which the child is placed in a dome like this and LED strips are eliminated and the child's movement towards the strips are assessed with an infrared camera. Ocular motility and nystagmus assessment is important. Look for saccades and pursuits. Saccades can be tested by suddenly introducing a toy in the visual field while the child is fixing on an object and look for the sudden saccadic movement if the child is making it. Pursuits can be assessed by moving a toy in various directions. Observe the initiation ability to sustain. So saccades and pursuits are important because if they are hampered, we have to modify the reading material of the child in such a way that it is properly falling in his visual field and he is able to read in spite of his saccades and pursuit problem. Look for any compensatory head posture, null point, and assess for squint by the corneal light reflex and cover test. Correction of squint and nystagmus will considerably help in the visual development and overall development. Objective ways of evaluating is retinoscopy, which is most important because many children, in spite of all the above mentioned methods, may not cooperate. So cycloplegic refraction using homatropine or atropine ointment is required. Avoid cyclopentolate because it tends to cause neurological side effects in these children. Dynamic retinoscopy is very important because many kids can have impaired accommodation. So it is done by fixing this vision card on the retinoscope and asking the child to fixate on this and then switching his attention from this to the distant target and looking for a myopic shift in the near retinoscopy. So you do the streak retinoscopy at 33 centimeters and 3 meters. Note the accommodative response. If it is poor, a bifocal is required in these children, executive bifocal, which considerably improves their overall performance. Based on your objective retinoscopy findings, even if the child is not cooperative, we can use these guidelines and prescribe glasses. This is for children without strabismus, depending on their age group. And this guidelines is for children with strabismus. These are based on the American Academy of Ophthalmology guidelines. They are easily available online. VEP is another objective method of assessing vision in uncooperative children. Flash VEP can be done under anesthesia. And for quantifying and estimating visual acuity, pattern onset and pattern reversal, VEP can be used. After this ocular examination, like a routine thing where we examine the anterior segment, adnexa, and the retina, pupils for RFPD, this is very important. And after all this, functional vision assessment is very important in these children. How easily the child can use vision, how they are using their vision to guide movement and navigate through space. So all this will be covered by Dr. Suma Madam in her talk on CVI. But remember to assess functional vision in these special children. In the end, we must remember that it is we as a society that has to adjust to the child's need and not make the child adjust, so that each child can recognize his or her full potential, become independent and contribute meaningfully towards society. Thank you very much.